Hey, and thanks for tuning in to the first episode, Talking Toilets Goes into Lockdown. Alex and I started this journey a while ago where every week we brought on a new guest and talked all things toilets. But now we're in isolation, we thought we'd have a go chatting about all the toilets we missed and took for granted over the years. I don't want to start on an apology, but the sound quality of this first episode could be better and does dramatically get better by the second episode, which we'll release next week. But we wanted to begin where we started, which was just when good old Boris Johnson had announced the full isolation restriction. Really hope you like it. We put a lot into it. And if you do, please shout out about it. Tell your neighbour, tell your friend. Go on our social medias. Our Instagram and Twitter is talkingtoilets_, and our Facebook is Talking Tea Podcast. The reason for the T on Facebook is they think toilet is a derogatory word. Who would have thought? So let's prove them wrong. Yeah, really hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in.
Talking Toilets with Alex Hope and William Smith.
So, hello and welcome to Talking Toilets Goes into Lockdown. My name is William Smith in Tufnell Park, and in East Finchley is...
Me, Alex Hope. I'm not in lockdown, I should let it known. I'm self-isolating, but I'm doing so for 2 days while the weekend happens, and then I go back into essential key work.
I feel like you going into lockdown for 2 days is more that everyone else is in lockdown.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there is a self-isolation period of 2 days. I don't think they go, right, 2 days and then you're ready to go back to work.
I still have to stay here, though, when it's the weekend. I can't go to the pub.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
very true.
That's still not possible, which is what I would be doing.
But to really, so you're a key worker, but what's your job?
My job is to infect swathes of the public with... No, I'm joking. My job is to deliver boilers, radiators, and plumbing equipment and boiler spares. So that's that. I'm not going to bore you with that.
Right, so should we get on with it?
Let's get on with it.
So, Alex, what was the... I suppose it's difficult for you because you're currently not in isolation despite currently being in 2 days' worth of isolation. But what was the last toilet you remember using before all of this lockdown stuff happened?
The last toilet I remember using, there were two. The first one was in a bush in Milton Keynes because my van broke down and I needed it to be recovered. And then when I was at the recovery place, there was no one around because of COVID-19. So this is in Milton Keynes, which in itself feels apocalyptic without, this kind of horrendous virus being spread around. It was in a bush because the place that my van had been recovered to was staffed by very wary individuals that had a row of chairs in front of their door that nobody was allowed to cross. So I asked if I could use their toilet and they were kind of like...
Were the row of chairs there as a distant safety because of the COVID-19?
Yeah.
Okay,
social
good,
distancing thing. Yeah, it was a precaution.
That's good.
I kind of felt like immediately that asking would not have the right results. I was basically rejected, and then I thought, well, I do need both, but I can find a place in this barren landscape of Milton Keynes, no offence, to urinate. So I just walked around, and it was quite interesting seeing this road that had a few factories on it, and it would usually be hustling and bustling, and it was just me peeing by the side of a road. And then the second was a service station on the M1 on my journey back, which was terrifying. It's weird to enter a building that usually would have hundreds of cars parked outside and hundreds of people inside. Very bad cleanliness and sanitation. Just terrifying, really. A bit like scenes from Chernobyl. Really quite similar.
The toilet I remember using before the lockdown was actually in a pub.
How long have you been locked down for, by the way?
Thursday was when I was told I was laid off from work. My building had been shut down. I'd been laid off. And I then, weirdly, went to the pub. Even though you shouldn't be going to the pub at all. Everybody should be remaining inside and avoiding it. I knew that Boris Johnson was going to be doing his announcement,
Yeah.
I knew that the assembly rooms next to where I work was going to be showing the announcement on their massive projector screens they normally use for the sport. And I had kind of assumed that Boris Johnson was going to be ordering all hospitality venues to shut. And I thought there is no better place to watch this speech than in a pub on a massive projector screen while drinking a Guinness. So that's what I decided to do. So I was there, my venue's just been shut down. Boris Johnson is ordering everywhere else to shut down. But this was the last toilet I used that was open to other people to use except for my own. But anyway, so the Assembly House's toilet has always been bad. It's always been run down. But recently, they invested some money in their toilets, which was exciting. And you go in, and it does smell clean. There are new tiles. Everything's kind of very... And, there is this corona thing going on. So you would expect their levels of cleanliness to be heightened. Their soap was, instead of a small dispenser, was a huge kind of 5-litre tub with a massive plunger on. Clearly somebody's gone, fuck it, they're going to close us tomorrow and I have to have soap. Let's just put this thing out.
And then I can take it home.
Yeah, exactly. The urinals, 2 of which have already filled up with urine, so clearly they've invested in the aesthetic and not in the function of these toilets. And then you go into the cubicles, which now finally they do have locks on. But why you'd want to lock yourself into a toilet that yet again the toilet seat has fallen off the toilet. And then inside one of them, the toilet roll, the big jumbo toilet roll, had been shoved inside the bowl of the toilet. And then in the other one, there was just no toilet seat. So clearly they'd invested in toilets. Somebody's gone in and made them in the exact same state they were before, which was why they were refurbished in the first place.
Widespread panic.
And you're kind of stood in this room, and if anything, reaffirms why we're in this pandemic in the first place. It's like, why do we
do anything nice?
Why do we do anything else? But why do we treat these areas where we're kind of most bacterial and virally vulnerable with such disregard?
The question is why is it like this in a pub? And I think in a North London pub, perhaps it's the right question to ask. Why is it so degenerated? Why is it so degenerate, rather?
I don't know if it matters where you are in London. I just thought it was bizarre the fact that this toilet has clearly been refurbished at a point when we all need to be slightly more conscious hygienically. And I feel that everybody has. But yet, for some reason, in this weird kind of micro-universe of this toilet in the Assembly House, the message hadn't been given to them, which is probably why they were the only pub still open. And you know what? It was relatively busy. Everybody sat there listening to Boris Johnson telling them not to be in a pub while swiftly finishing one and then asking for another. I remember hearing some bloke being like, could you just turn the sound down? It's a bit depressing. And it's like, well, it is a bit depressing because it's true. Should we move on to some toilet news?
Why not? Yeah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, cool. Let's have a look. So, Rother District Council has closed the public toilets until further notice after attempts were made to steal the toilet roll.
I mean, come on. Really? In this day and age when there's none on the shelves?
People are struggling for toilet roll. I'm amazed that these public toilets are still able to be open.
Yeah.
And realistically, the toilet paper is there for the public to use. But if there's none in the shop, surely the public's use is to just fucking steal all the toilet roll there is there.
Yeah, absolutely. How can you steal from the greater mass of your own self?
Also, with us having to be in isolation, how many people are realistically in desperate need to use these toilets? This is from the council. We have experienced a high level of vandalism with people attempting to steal toilet rolls, meaning we can no longer manage the facilities effectively or hygienically. Apologies for any inconvenience. Now, to me, that sounds a bit of a lacklustre excuse.
I don't get that.
So, one, they're claiming that the theft of toilet paper is vandalism.
Is vandalism then the description of what happens to a toilet when there is no toilet paper within?
It's also, are the public toilets a necessity if they're going to be closing parks and things like that and people aren't meant to be outside? Now, I can't imagine they would classify toilet attendants as key workers. So I just think that they're using the fact that somebody might have stolen some toilet roll. I wonder, I'm being very suspicious here, but very sceptical, My wonder is whether or not their supply ran out of toilet paper and they've gone, fuck, we didn't order enough it.
And we've forgotten to close it for a week.
We've forgotten to close it for a week, and they're going to be losing a hell of a lot of money because we're going to have to give people their council tax reductions and etc. because of loss of earnings.
Yeah, it feels a little bit kind of, well, to begin with, when you talk about a public sort of convenience, or at least in our sort of big society world in the UK, you've got nationwide government saying that there's no such thing as society and you kind of make your own way in life, and the only social things that we've organised are the very sort of minimum, i.e. national healthcare was introduced 50 50 years ago, and they've sort of systematically dismantled it. But when it comes to things like public toilets, those are led by councils, and councils are voted in separately as their own kind of mini governments. So really, from place to place, you have a kind of, as a resident at least, you have an expectancy of what kind of thing you're going to be dealt with. Now, being from Scotland, a public toilet is something that I think I've only very rarely seen. And those things are, at best, a place where it's okay to shit and piss.
But with that logic, that would mean that every toilet would be different depending on how the council decided to, or depending on each council. But I'm a big fan of public toilets, and I think they're all as bad as each other. I think they're always minimally stocked, not enough attendants looking after them. You don't want to talk them down, because if they didn't exist, you'd be fucked. Like I especially would, for example, if there was a public toilet near where you were in Milton Keynes, you'd absolutely use it.
Oh yeah, of course, but nothing's near anything in Milton Keynes. The only thing that's near anything in Milton Keynes is one roundabout to another.
There are loads of roundabouts in Milton Keynes, I agree.
Yeah, it's a roundabout kind of place. Yeah. So shall we move on?
Yeah, next bit of toilet news.
Okay, here we go. This is on the Metro.
Good old corona spreading Metro.
Premier news provider. I mean, this is an article about toilet paper, printed on toilet paper, I presume, what could have been reused, rather than to print this ghastly paper as to what it should be used for, which is wiping one's feces off one's arse. Coronavirus prepper makes reusable toilet paper that goes in wash when you're done with it. That's an idea that's happened before. I.e. flannels.
Yeah.
Don't you think? That's like, it's not a new idea to wipe your arse with a rag and then wash it.
I think what they've done is they've just made an incredibly thin, long flannel and then wrapped it around a bit of cardboard.
100%. It's got what it looks like a popper at the end, so you can like roll it up. What confuses me though is that it's like a full roll. I'll obviously put the picture up on our social media, but it's a full roll and it's got a popper on the end, as if you're like putting it together so that you can travel with it. When you use toilet paper, you use a couple of bits, don't you? And then you rip them off. You don't use an entire roll and then just... What this looks like is she's planning to use... I say she because it's a lady called Cherish Odell, which is a brilliant name. It's she's manufactured this thing, and it just looks like a roll of toilet paper, but you reuse it. So what are you meant to do with it when you only got to use 2 bits? Is this just used for pee, and you save your remaining scraps of toilet paper for your poos, or do you just leave the shitty bits out and then just use it as you go along? And then anyway, she's selling a fabric version of sought after bathroom product for between $15 and $35. It uses hypoallergenic materials, great, so no rash on the bot to ensure it's suitable for all skin types. They come in rolls. Oh, so users are able to snap off sheets. Oh, so that's what the popper is. I mean, what do you think? I think it's an alright idea.
The thing that makes me the most angry about all of this, I'm sorry, I've got my head around it now. I don't think anybody should be profiting from what's going on with the coronavirus. And I feel that though this girl might have found, a nice way of solving her own problem, maybe she hasn't got enough toilet roll and she's got loads of fabric that she can sew together. But you say she's selling it. Yeah, I'm not for that. I'm not for that idea. I don't think the product's been tested enough.
Even with something that threatens the entire human species, you won't stop people being greedy. And that's just the thing. This kind of profiteering is usually only seen in war. So it does feel like, because of the global kind of nature of it all, it does feel like the closest thing we will understand, at least in our generation, to what it's like to live through a war. And I say that knocking on wood, because who knows what's next after Corona? The next stage is toilets that we've come across in our memories that we most miss or most kind of find a sentimentality about. Using the same one over and over again can become quite mundane.
Yeah, but also there's a big thing about your own toilet being a toilet that you feel comfortable in, and it's nice to come home and be able to be comfortable in your own toilet.
True.
Whereas if the only toilet you're using is that one toilet that you used to find solace in, then it's very difficult to find solace in something that's always there, because then your relaxing toilet becomes the norm.
Exactly.
And then the fear would be that then suddenly you find your own normal toilet uncomfortable, or suddenly you become hypersensitive to the things that are inside there.
Absolutely.
Let's hope that never happens, and I really hope that doesn't happen to anyone out there.
For sure.
God. Oh. got really afraid now.
No. It's a scary thought, but it's also, you've got to be aware of these things. And by changing the routine of your usual day, lots of people have started taking up running when they never would have before, just because they can't do it, and it's like an enticing thing to do now. So maybe zest up your toilet life. Maybe leave the door open twice a week. Maybe add different wall coverings, or a new scent perhaps. Remember, there are people like me doing necessary work out there, like delivering toilet fresheners and anything else off Amazon. So if you wanted something that you don't need, but because you can't go out to get it, you want, try finding something that would zest up your toilet life, and then it might make it feel slightly more like you're doing something you shouldn't. The taboo that we talk about, which is toilets. So yeah, my question to you, Will, is what do you most miss concerning or regarding, or what toilet do you miss most?
Well, I think mine is, it kind of revolves around everything that I hate and love about toilets. And while I was in the situation of this toilet, I felt embarrassed, I felt stupid. It was just a strange toilet experience, but it was also wonderful, and I miss the fact that I won't be able to have a similar experience for months, probably. And it was at Meat Liquor in King's Cross, which is a very kind of trendy, it's the first time I'd ever been to have you been to a Meat Liquor?
I went to Meat Liquor in Brighton, and it was spoken up to me about, and it was disappointing.
You see, so I'd only ever associated it with like meat eaters and like very American kind of style-esque kind of food, so I wasn't expecting a lot, and I loved it. Like, I thought the branding was great, the service wasn't good, but the bartender knew what she was doing, the menu was it was what I wanted it to be. It was very dark, it was very loud, and I stood up to go to the toilet, and I had no idea where it was.
It is super dark in there, isn't it?
The bar and the kitchen was this kind of old repurposed bus, where like the front of the bus was the bar, and then where the windows were, they cut it out, and then that was the kitchen. And so I then assumed by the back of the bus was where the toilet was, because I couldn't see a door anywhere. So I went round to the back of the bus and then entered the kitchen. I entered the kitchen, and these two guys looked at me and were like, "Get out!" So I got out of the kitchen and immediately felt very, disorientated. I then saw, how to describe it. Like in like a film where there's like a door behind a bookcase kind of thing.
A secret room.
Yeah, so I was verbally kicked out of the kitchen, and then suddenly this door opened from a wall, and it was somebody coming out of the toilet, and I was like, oh thank God. So I went into this door and then entered into what was a room filled with sinks. There were no doors in this room.
Except the one you just entered through.
No, that disappeared. Like, you turned around and that
became another
bookcase.
Door.
No, it became like another wall. It was not clear, the door. I knew it was there because I'd just come through it.
Yeah. So the like the psychological aspect of it being a door, the like metaphysical aspect of it being a door had not removed itself from your mind. You understood that was still a door. It hadn't just become a wall. You weren't like tripping. It wasn't like a wall immediately, like a solid wall.
I wasn't convinced of anything at this stage, to be perfectly honest. But you got the sinks, and then suddenly, serendipitously, another door opens and somebody comes out of a cubicle.
Right.
So I then run as fast as I can to grab that door before it closes, or that wall door, whatever it is, and then go into the toilet. And it was very trendy, very lovely. There was nice music playing. The walls were like comic book strips, which was not. I remember the wallpaper was one of the comic book strips was coming off. So as a curious eye, then pulled the comic strip, pulled it and made it worse. But then behind that comic book strip was another comic book strip, which was really nice.
So it'd been like papier-mâché.
Yeah, papier-mâché layered of comic book strips.
Okay.
And did my business, left. And then, washed my hands and did everything I did, went and then sat down at the table with my friends. And as I sat down, the two people I was with were just staring at me quite kind of, I don't know how you describe it, almost as if they had seen a ghost. They were eyes wide, mouth open, very confused looking. And, I assumed it was because they had seen me walk into the kitchen. But it turns out that they were both confused at where I had been.
Right.
Because in the time that I had gone through all of that and gone to the toilet, my friend Bronte had also seamlessly gone to the toilet, had a poo, washed her hands, and then sat back down.
Oh, okay. So they were wondering whether you'd had a sort of midnight tete-a-tete with someone, or like you.
Oh no, I think they were more worried that I'd got lost, and that's exactly what had happened. I felt like I'd got completely lost in this toilet. But overall, what I miss about. I mean, this whole experience was disorientating. It was slightly scary is the right word, but it definitely made me. It didn't make me feel. My sensibility had been completely changed.
Right.
And I did feel hypersensitive to everything that was happening around me, and I wouldn't recommend the toilet to a friend, but I would happily go back just for putting myself in that weird sensory situation.
Do you feel like you'll have a different experience knowing how to enter the toilet, how to like find a cubicle, how to like?
I more feel that it should be my duty, my public duty, to kind of put up some signposts or just stand there, just kind of like not be employed and just like reassure people of where the toilet is.
I'm not sure whether it's your public duty at all. I think if the public duty rests with anyone, it might be the actual venue itself and the manager therein.
But yeah, I think that's like in terms of the toilet, the kind of the idea of what I miss most about toilets being in lockdown is the weird, bizarre interactions that come with it.
Yeah,
And I think as a result, that's the one toilet that comes to mind in terms of things that I'll miss.
see, I think that's the thing that I'm most enjoying about being, one of the sole people out on the M40 at any given time. I feel a lot more kind of like less awkward, and I'm quite enjoying that. Now, when it comes to what I'm missing out of going to the ordinary public toilet kind of situation, you'd kind of be going through the day, or you'd be in a pub, or you'd be in a restaurant, and you just kind of like be full on with someone giving them your full attention, doing your job, doing whatever, and then you go to the toilet. Whereas now, the added aspect of having to touch everything with your elbows and sort of move into things backwards so that you're not touching things with your hands or your front place where all your air and saliva comes out of and goes into. I feel like I miss having that kind of feeling of going into a toilet and just having the time to sit down, chill in that environment. No, it's kind of a bit grubby, but like as long as you're locked away or you're on your own, you've kind of got that meditative moment and you're able to sort of relax away from. I mean, you can do that by walking outside, don't get me wrong, there's other places to do that. You can choose to be alone more of the time. It's just like that's a kind of unavoidable aspect of the day-to-day life. You need to urinate, you need to defecate. So going to these places, you also find that it's a different environment, it's a transition.
I think what you've realised is that you found going to the toilet quite a meditative process. And, we've discussed quite before how we have very different feelings and, what it is when we enter the toilet and how much time we might spend in there. It's like for me, the one thing I'm finding quite difficult is this idea of only being able to go on like one walk to the shops and one mode of exercise, because for me I will walk a random length of time if I feel mentally preoccupied with anything. If I need to work something out, or I'm feeling a bit claustrophobic, or I'm finding something quite troubling, my go-to method of meditation is always to put on some music and go for a walk and think these things through. And now suddenly I feel like that has been taken away from me because I'll be judged, or I will risk infecting others or myself, no matter how solitary or conscious I am of social distancing. So I think which is interesting that you feel that. So it's not one specific toilet; it's that feeling of being able to be. Yeah, I like that.
It's like an added level of kind of awareness that you have to add to your day, whereas usually it would be a moment that you could kind of step back from it. And don't get me wrong, like there are other ways of doing it, and there's ways that I've done it differently. But especially when it comes to like something that's so about sanitation and so about hygiene, that it kind of it seems a bit like the danger zone in a way.
Obviously we should be washing our hands as soon as we enter our houses and things like that, and sterilising things that we touched before we were able to wash our hands. Well, my dad was saying that every time he enters the house, he now has a shower. I'm just like, which I completely get, and it's a good idea.
I do that when I come back from work, but you've got to remember that you're not naked walking around.
Yeah, exactly.
Britain, so you need to wash your clothes kind of more regularly in a way. And I mean, as long as you're not touching your face and you're kind of staying away from people wildly coughing and sneezing, you should be kind of all right. I'm not talking about the illness, I'm talking about in terms of the disinfectant.
I'm hoping that generally this is going to make us as a people just more hygienic, more conscious.
Don't you also think the nature of the way things have grown just exponentially, and by things I mean everything, like there's more buildings, There's more, pollution in the air. There's more trains, buses, cars, everything. There's more things. There's more shops to go to. There's more items on the shelves that people could potentially touch. There's more people around.
Yeah.
So, like, when things exponentially grow, the things that are in the cracks of those things, the things that kind of, are the molecules or the things that surround those things, grow exponentially as well. And it's kind of like this thing that we could have prepared for better, admittedly, with lots more money and lots more kind of time and resource. You can't really prepare for anything like this, and you definitely can't prepare for the way it affects your life from a knock-on domino effect. And yeah, we're only getting started. Potentially we can have a final thought about what we hope for the future.
I just really hope that when we return to normality, that the toilets will have upped a level of bacterial consciousness to not even just some kind of a nod to what has happened.
Yeah.
And hopefully that toilet in the assembly house will have good soap dispensers and will have a toilet seat and will be lit correctly. Just very kind of simple standards that you would expect.
Yeah, true.
That's what I hope will have changed from this. Although the odds are everything will go back to normal. What about you, mate?
I will definitely... I'm just basically on the same level as you. I think sanitation standards need to be improved. We've definitely underestimated the power of alcohol gel. I think that's going to become a new kind of religious item.
I want it to become its new currency. You know how you've got like cryptocurrency?
Yeah.
But they're the opposite of that. So like we've receded in the idea of what currency's become. It's now become objects.
It becomes trade.
Yeah.
Back to trade, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely back to trade. However, the currency will have to be sanitized because trading anything, it will need to be sanitized because you never know. Times could have evolved. Yeah, sweet.
Great.
So
Well,
that was...
Yeah, that was our Talking Toilets lockdown. So thank you very much for listening. Obviously, there'll be a lot of waffling and technical issues because this is the first time we've remotely recorded. So thank you for your patience on that. And yeah, we hope that it was mildly interesting. And yeah, just thank you for your support. We'll put out information of our socials at the end of this podcast. And we'll probably put something at the beginning as well if we're clever enough to do that. But yeah, thank you very much.
That sounded so sarcastic. Yeah, thank you very much. And always remember, keep flushing.
Keep flushing.